previous guest writes our first question. You have our envelope. I'm going to turn it over to you to get us going.
Cool. We're live?
We are live.
Nice. Okay, cool. First question. So the question reads, do you think your time in service was worth it? Yeah, I do, and actually, my gut reaction is yes, but I'm happy to share why, and right now in this like dynamic time, right? It's really crazy what's going on in the world, and we don't have to get into geopolitics, but there's a lot of scrutiny around service and why we serve and who it's for and all these things. And, I'll share, and part of my story will highlight this, that I didn't have any qualms about why I was joining the military and what time it was. I joined in 2006, and it's the height of the war, global war on terrorism. And I knew what I was signing up for, and I knew what I was doing. But I think the bigger reason about that, other than service, was like, Paul, I need to write a passage, right? I didn't have a lot of male influence in my life. There's some insecurities there around what makes a man. And me going to boot camp, and I remember getting back from boot camp and shaking my grandpa's hand. And I felt like that was the first time I shook his hand as a man. And my relationship with him, who was a very formidable male influence in my life, was different when I came back. And there's something about that I needed. And also, like, I wasn't very good in school, man. I was a horrific student. The idea of college wasn't going to be there. I came from a trailer park in Birmingham, Alabama, where there wasn't a lot of options, and doing what everyone else was doing wasn't enticing to me. So I needed that adventure. I needed that time to mature, and I needed some discipline, to be honest with you. And they gave it to me, man. And some of that discipline I still rely on today. Many of the lessons and wisdom I gathered, I undeniably carry today. And the experiences and friends, right? Learning how to be a man with men, learning just so many opportunities I got there. It was absolutely worth it, man. Absolutely worth it. Geopolitics aside, left and right, this and that aside, the reason for the war aside, like there's something about me that needed it as a man, and it undeniably shaped me and my success moving forward. So I'm very grateful for it.
Fortunately and unfortunately, those of us who operated at what we call the line level, I'll use my example in law enforcement. I started in law enforcement right after the Rodney King, or during the Rodney King riots. I basically ended my law enforcement career coming out of the George Floyd riots. There are, unfortunately, if you ride the merry-go-round long enough, there are periods of ups and downs where society is for you and society is against you. We are the target for society when they're for us and when they're against us. It's easy to direct their appreciation and their frustration at us because they don't get to interact with those who are actually making the decisions. But I still firmly believe, and this especially from the law enforcement side of the house, those who are feeling that negative pressure and thinking that, oh, what's the point of doing this? My answer is always, there is that large silent majority who want us out there. And I'm not trying to sound like a few good men, but who need us out there the whole 9 yards. And they're the ones that you're not going to hear from them. But those are the ones who really want and need us out there. And that's why we're there. So that's what drove my career.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing it. Yeah. I know that maybe people don't even understand what they need until they're picking up that phone and dialing 911.
Correct.
Sometimes they don't even understand, how important it is to have you patrolling the streets when they wrap their car around the telephone pole. There's so many factors I didn't understand until I got into this space where it's like, it's easy to see the CNN highlights or the local news. I won't say names or labels, right? But the social media aspects of things and perspectives, and you don't get to see the day in and day out things of where you're showing up on their worst day, and they absolutely needed you whether they knew it or not.
You've already mentioned that part of going in the military was something that you needed personally in kind of that maturing process, that purpose process. But let's take you back. Where is hometown and where'd you grow up? What kind of formed the young man who went into the service?
Yeah, so it all started in Oceanside, California. I was born right there in Oceanside, California, to an amazing mom and dad. And it was a different time then, back in 1986, where they're trying to figure it out. I remember my mom having ambitions of getting into the airline industry and being maybe a flight attendant. And it was just like I remember being just young remember my mom being young, my dad being young, with them figuring it out. But I remember there being a lot of love there. Over the course of that relationship and as it matured and probably them being young played a factor, they unfortunately dissolved their relationship, which resulted in my brother and my mom and myself moving to Alabama, which is kind of a crazy transition, right?
Real quick though, Oceanside, is there a connection to the military with that, or is that just where your mom and dad are from or where they were living?
Yeah, it was, well, my grandfather was in the Navy and he's from 32nd Street and he was a proper sailor that rode on the ships, but no direct tie to the Marine Corps or Camp Pendleton specifically, which was a bit ironic that I would end up being there in my career, right? Yeah. So as that relationship dissolved, you know, my mom had a stepsister that was from Alabama. My grandfather was originally from Alabama and she would come out and visit in the summers and she had a great relationship with my aunt. So she said, you know what? Let me take the boys. Let me go out there. I know it's a little bit slower. It's a little bit easier. And maybe that we can find some traction there. So she takes me and my brother. We load up on a Greyhound bus, grab a bag of sour cream and onion chips, and off we go on a cross-country journey to this like new beginning. As we go out there, as you can imagine, with not much of a game plan and not much of a career status at this point, you know, it became a bit difficult. My mom kind of had to try and figure it out and play it by ear. And, you know, that's ultimately how we ended up in Alabama.
How old are you and your brother at this time?
Probably 3 and 4.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So are you actually old enough to recognize what's changing, or did it just kind of seem like a cool road trip for you?
Yeah, I think a little bit was like it was a new adventure. And then a little bit of it was like, where is everybody that we love? Where's grandma at? Where's, you know, it was a bit scary for us. And, you know, I think that's not something my mom necessarily calculated.
Right.
And it's okay. When you're in survival mode, you're kind of doing what you got to do. But yeah, it was, you know, there was a big part of that of where's dad? Where's grandma, grandpa? Where's all these people that love us and feed us and take care of us? And now we're just solely dependent on mom.
And when you say grandma and grandpa, is that mom's dad or dad's dad?
Yeah. So my mom's parents were in California at the time and my dad's parents were in California at the time. So it's like pretty much our whole family, minus my aunt that we were going to go live with.
And how was that transition and growing up in Alabama for you?
You know, there's good things and bad things. You know, if you take the same opening question and ask me again, was it worth it? I think it was, man. You know, as much as I would have loved to have been around my dad's family more, my mom's family ended up ultimately moving out there with us, which was great. But I got to learn some different things, right? I got to grow up in the woods. I got to be a kid, you know, skipping school, riding the train to the rock quarry, skipping rocks at the creek, catching crawdaddies. There's all these things that I think I was afforded living out there that I wasn't probably going to be. It would have just been different out here, you know?
What was formulating, as far as you becoming a young man, what were those factors that impacted you? How were you in school, or what was school like for you? Were you into sports and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. You know, in Alabama, football is a religion, right? So very early on, it's like my mom got us into sports, which I'm grateful for. I think I started playing full contact football from 3rd grade on. And, you know, that taught me a lot. I got some good positive male influence there. You know, in the South, things are different too. The way you shake a man's hand, the way you know, the customs and courtesies of what's discussed at the dinner table, you know, a profound need to be a part of the community. That means going to church on Wednesdays and Sundays. You know, these are all things that, even though I probably took them for granted, and even though I walked away from some of it a little bit, found my way back, I appreciated that growing up. You know, something about the South and those customs and courtesies, I think, you know, is important for a young man. And yeah, definitely growing up playing football shaped me a lot into competitiveness. But I didn't play that, you know, I didn't make it past probably my freshman year in high school. So as you know, in Alabama, they grow big out there.
I was going to say.
And I was a late bloomer.
You better be college starting in high school, or you're not going to play probably in Alabama.
Oh, yeah, man. I remember I was playing and a running back came through and I jumped on, not a running back. Yeah, a running back came through and I jumped on him. He carried me 20 yards. And at that moment, I had to look in the mirror and say, I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
You mentioned that your mom, the remainder of your mom's family ended up in Alabama also. But as you were growing up, did you ever get the opportunities to come back and visit your grandparents here in California, to kind of, as a young man and growing up, compare the both of them? Or was it kind of all your time was just spent in Alabama up until the military?
I had zero contact with any family that was here in California. Yeah.
Going into high school, or coming to the end of high school, was military already what you were planning to do?
No, not at all, to be honest with you. Yeah, I did not.
When it comes to sunglasses, first responders and military members definitely don't baby them. They get dropped, thrown in a utility pocket, or tossed in gear bags. Frontline Optics was created for that reality. You get premium eye protection without paying designer brand prices for something that won't survive your lifestyle. From polarized UV 400 lenses to anti-reflective coatings and water-repellent finish. And here's where Frontline Optics separates themselves from the pack. When life happens and your glasses break, they offer a no-questions-asked replacement program, even for prescription lenses. On top of that, Frontline Optics was founded by a firefighter, and a portion of every purchase goes to support the First Responders Children's Foundation, helping families of those who gave everything. So if you're looking for sunglasses that look good and come from a company that actually understands the job, visit frontlineoptics.com and use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. Frontline Optics, from a first responder for the front lines.
I was one of those guys that was like, there's no way I could go in there and someone's yelling at me. I was the quintessential guy that was like, I'd punch a drill instructor or something. And then also I was like, it just seemed like a silly endeavor to me. Yep.
Were you a good kid in general?
I think I was a good kid. Was I troubled? Yes. Yeah. Did I struggle in school? Absolutely. Right. Did I find my way into maybe drugs and things like that? I did. Yeah. I was definitely trying to find my way. I knew that sitting in a desk, having somebody just, ramble this stuff at me, it was hard for me to connect the value in that and understand it. So I just struggled with basic discipline things like doing my homework. I struggled to understand the meaning of school and why I should be there. And then I was, always getting into fights too. Yeah, I was a very kind of hyper violent kid. I was very angry. I was very frustrated about the situation I was in, and I wasn't afraid to fight. Oftentimes where I grew up to is lower income places. So it's just like, it seems like it's part of it. If you don't know how to fight and you don't fight, you're going to be the victim. And there was no victim here. So me and my brother would find ourselves getting into fights a lot.
What'd your mom end up doing for work?
Yeah, she, when we first came out, she started working at Denny's. So she would do like service jobs like that. Along the way, she found her way to Chevron and became a cashier. She's very good at that job. And I think the owner of Chevron saw that in her. So she kind of worked her way up from there and became a manager at a local Chevron. And that carried her through the majority of like my upbringing.
This period where you're a young man, obviously making some poor choices, drugs, fighting, that type of stuff. And not necessarily poor in the sense that you maybe intentionally went looking for it. You might have just been a victim of the environment that you were in. Like you said, if you weren't fighting, you were going to be a victim. And so there comes a point where you don't have the choice. But any positive male role models for you?
Yeah, I did have a couple, and then sprinkled in along the way, there was a couple stepdads in there. I might not necessarily throw them in the positive category, but, I appreciate you asking me this question. I did have this positive male role model named Stan, and he actually came in. He's a preacher at one of the churches that we would attend, and he came in and really mentored me. Him and his wife, Pat, took me under their wing and really tried to impart some wisdom on me. Taught me about some things like hypnosis, right? He's a hypnotherapist. Taught me about meditation. And really, at the end of the day, he would take us to dinner. We'd go and sit down, and him and Pat would really share with me. He'd say things like, hey, maybe you're a poor kid, but you don't have to be a poor adult, right? And you can be anything that you want to be. And that no matter what, one day it won't be under your mom's roof and you won't be a victim of those circumstances, but you'll have the opportunity to build your own circumstances. And these are things, even at the time, I kind of felt like he wasn't talking to me. Maybe that would be the truth in the case for someone else, but not me. But then as I started going into life and started taking the reins of my own life, it did actually happen. And those things did resonate. So I'm very grateful for the impact he had in my life.
So then what was life for you right out of high school? What were you doing?
Yeah. So initially right out of high school, I went and worked at a call center. So I was doing online technical support, I think, for one of the internet providers, teaching people how to like plug in their DSL. So this was right in between the era of dial-up, and now we're getting DSL, and everyone thought it was great. And I'm taking phone calls from elderly people, and I'm like, hey, I need you to close those windows. And I hear them disappear, and they're slamming windows in the background. All right, I closed the windows. Or, hey, I need you to empty the trash on this. And you hear them running out the door with the trash. So it was like really a unique time where everyone's trying to figure it out. I don't really know much about this stuff, but I'm running off a prompt. I'm learning how to talk to people. I'm learning how to control calls and like figure out creative ways to explain my way to people to get the end result that I wanted. And I was pretty good at it, man. Yeah, I went from there and I ended up working at a credit card company. And very quickly, I worked my way up to a manager there. And I think I got an award for the youngest manager there at that site. It was like 18, and I'm running a team of people and answering phone calls and talking about credit card fees and things like that. And that's kind of my first glimpse, I think, of me like having the potential to be something more. I was like, oh man, I'm looking at everyone around me. I'm in charge of people twice, 3 times my age sometimes. And I was like, okay, this is cool, but I'm not so sure if this is where I want to stay. If I already made it to this level at this point, maybe there's more for Steve out there.
Nothing immediately from, hey, I'm 18, I'm out of high school, I want to get out of Alabama, I want to go someplace else? Or was there not even, and I don't mean this negatively, but like, was there no plan really for what you were going to do in the future at that point?
No, I knew that I'd kind of like medicine. I grew up watching Rescue 911 and there was like a fascination around that. And I took some classes in high school that kind of reiterated my desire to want to go in the medical field. So I started going to school at the local community college, and then very quickly the discipline issues and the gaps there were like showing me that it was going to be a very expensive endeavor unless I figured it out. And at the time, there was no desire for me to figure it out. So there was no real plan. It was kind of like the good old Southern tradition, like, graduate high school, find a job, find a girl that's not your cousin, have a family, go to church, and just kind of go in that direction. And to be honest with you, it's like, that wasn't enticing to me either. I didn't want none of that. But the itch is starting to become prevalent, right? I'm starting to realize, hey, I think maybe getting out of here might be the right answer.
So you didn't know what you wanted at that point, but you knew where your path was going was also not what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was very apparent to me. I didn't want to do what I saw being modeled to me around me.
How does the military even come to your radar then?
Yeah, so my brother was a year behind me. And he's kind of coming into his own. We were both kind of late bloomers. So in my high school year, I grew 5 inches and put on, 30 pounds. And I was like, dang, I wish I would have had this, a couple of years before. Maybe I could have kept playing football. But he was in high school. He's a senior, and some Marines came to the school, and he did the pull-up competition, got him a T-shirt, and he called me one day. He's like, bro, I'm going to be a Marine. I'm like, come on, Mitch. And why would you want to go dig foxholes? Is that what you want to do? And he's like, hey man, I don't expect you to support me or whatever. I'm just telling you, that's what I'm going to do. And then I saw this transition in him, right? He starts getting into shape. He's running every day. He's wanting to do the PST. He gets a girlfriend, and he's like, this little boy that used to play video games and eat Cheetos all day long is becoming a man. And I had a little bit of pressure. I was like, oh man, all right, Mitch. Like, I'm seeing me getting a little frumpy sitting at a call center. I'm getting okay money, but I'm like, uh-oh, there's like some peer pressure there. And I was like, all right, well, how about this? Like, I'll go with you. And a part of me wanted to protect him too. I was like, all right, well, actually, I think I need to go with him. We might have to fight, So yeah, he was my motivation and my inspiration. I think I maybe would have found that path, but it would have been much longer. But since he was already down and he was going, he's my ride and die. I'm like, all right, let's go. So, I went on that journey with him.
And did you both lock into the Marine Corps, or did you look at any of the other branches?
Yeah. So at first it was the Marine Corps, right? And I wanted to go with him, and we had this idea. We'd join together, we'd go through boot camp together, and we maybe get stationed together. But as I said, he's in high school and I'm working full time. So the Marine Corps, delayed entry program, requires you to go and do workouts. They start indoctrinating you early. They do a good job. I think they do the best job of indoctrination, right? And part of that was going to these mandatory things. So they'd call me and they'd say, hey, we got to go do this. You got to do a PST or whatever it may be. And I'm like, hey, I have to work. I'm like, well, you need to take off of work. I'm like, I have an apartment. I can't, I have bills.
High school.
Yeah, I don't live with mommy. I have bills. So it's like, I hear you. This is going to be a deal breaker than it is what it is. But, at first they were cool about it, but then they became more pushy. And then as we get closer to the time, they're getting really pushy. So ultimately it resulted in me one day, the recruiter called me and he's like, hey, I need you to do this right now. And I was like, hey, you're not going to talk to me that way, right? You don't call me, I'll call you. And this is the way it's going to work. I hang up the phone. I don't think twice, man. All right. I go about my business. One of these days, my brother says, hey, we're doing a PST on a Saturday. Can you go? It's like, yep, I'm off, dude. I'll be there. So I remember I show up, got my Go Fasters on. I'm ready to go. I'm hydrated. And I walk in that office and the recruiter was there and he remembered that last conversation. And he's this large staff sergeant, right? He was lifting all the weights and he flipped out.
Very quietly talked to you.
Oh, no. He flipped his desk when I came in the door and got real aggressive. And we kind of got into an argument there and it looked like it was going to get physical. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not dealing with this. Right. And I was a bit of a rebel without a cause too. So I just wasn't going to take it. So I ended up walking out of that office and walking in the Navy office next door because they were side by side and essentially asking them, hey, what's the closest thing you got to a Marine? Like, well, we got this thing called a Navy corpsman. They're the medical people that go with the Marines. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of cool. Like, I like medicine, and maybe like I can get through that process, and then maybe I could be reconnected with my brother. My brother's just like, what are you doing, Judas? Like, you're just going to leave? And I'm like, yeah, you're on your own, bro. So I go over there, and they essentially were like, hey, it's not as simple as you just saying you want to do this. You got to take a test. You got to be smart enough and all these things. And I was like, oh, dang, the Marine Corps didn't talk about being smart enough about anything. So this is kind of interesting. So I go and I take the test. I think I pass it by the skin of my teeth. Then I ended up going to Navy boot camp when my brother went to Marine Corps boot camp. So we kind of still went on the journey together, but different sides, writing each other notes in boot camp underneath that red light. And it was a similar experience, but different, right?
Now, had you not done any official paperwork with the Marine Corps at this point, or were you obviously still able to back out of it?
Yeah. So I hadn't even gone down to Montgomery to MEPS or anything like that. It was literally just a delayed entry and just kind of
a verbal commitment, and you were working out with them.
Yep.
More kind of just waiting on your brother to be ready to go.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think if it wasn't with my brother, I would have already gone through that process at this point. But since I was waiting on him, I was on the high school program, and I was dragging my feet. Yep.
What was it like getting to boot camp?
Dude, to be honest with you, I think about this, man, because all these people have all these cool stories about it. But for me, it was like a fog. Like I have little blips of memory about it. The things I do remember is just being really confused and also being grossly underprepared, right? Where people had already known people's ranks. I remember I heard someone call someone a chief. So I was like, oh, I got to call them all chief. This is what we do. That's not the answer. Not everyone's a chief. A chief means something in the Navy. And I was getting lit up left and right. So I remember being very confused, doing a lot of push-ups, right? And just kind of, and also thinking it's not that bad, right? I remember it's like, we're working out. It's kind of fun. I realized that as long as you weren't as bad as the worst person, really you could play the gray man. I was pretty good at that. And, they're feeding us pretty good. And it was not that bad, man. Thought it was okay. I'm sure my brother's experience was much different on the Marine Corps side of the house.
Did you go in on a corpsman rating?
Yeah, I did. Yep. So that was pretty huge. And then very quickly, they start kind of grooming you to see who's who in the zoo. And one of my first formidable memories there was they set us all down. We hadn't slept in a couple of days because we were doing the in-processing. It's all part of probably the psychological part. And they show us a video of like Navy SEALs and SWCC guys. Like, who wants to do that? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And, a few other people raise their hand. And very quickly, they start segregating you, right? Putting you in these different programs. Like, I forget what the program was for them there. But they start
Dive Motivator, I think.
Yeah, they have Dive Motivator at Core School, and maybe it was at boot camp. I don't remember, something similar. Yep, but they start. How'd you know that term, by the way?
Just 5 years of doing interviews with guests who have gone through similar type programs.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's kind of cool that you know that. But yeah, there was a program called Dive Motivator. But yeah, they start kind of segregating you and just prepping you for that journey.
So were you thinking to make the switch and give buds a try?
I did. So I remember talking to them about it. They really, that's a hot fill billet, right? Making SEALs.
Well, especially 06, 07. I mean, You're at the height of it.
Yeah. So it's a hot fill billet. The attrition rate's so high that if they're not trying to get as many people to go through as possible, it's like, they can't be with the selection process they have. It's like, it just makes sense to open the floodgates, which is what's so cool about SEALs to me, is that they're one of the only special operation rates that let you walk off the street and try. Most make you have to be in for a couple years. There's an age requirement. And I find that really impressive. And it goes more to say, like, for the SEALs that make it at 18, it's like there's something special about those people because it is very, very hard. And for me, as I started looking at it, I started weighing the options. And one of the first questions I asked them was like, hey, if I choose to go this path and I don't make it, which is a very high chance I'm not because I couldn't swim very good. We only had a 6-foot pool in the trailer park and it was only filled up to 4 feet half the time, So needless to say, my combat side stroke wasn't so good, but they're like, no, man, if you don't make it, it's going to be needs of the Navy. And I was like, but if I go corpsman, is there a chance I could come back to this and like try this later? And like, yeah, of course you could. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take the wise decision. I know my insecurities. I know my inadequacies. And I think I'll just keep buying some time on this other path. And I'm glad I did, man. I'm really glad I did.
Now, when you were going through corpsman school, that was still at Great Lakes. Basically, you just stayed right there in Chicago, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then going through, I know in speaking to some other corpsmen, you were already in the mindset, like when you talk to the recruiter, you're like, hey, what do you guys have that it's like the Marine Corps? Like, oh, corpsman. Then, so you knew you could possibly be assigned. So you didn't need to be sold on the green side.
No. Yeah. It was the only way. Once I got to Corps school, and then the way the FMF corpsmen carried themselves, there was no denying it for me, right? The way they walked around, they had their FMF pins and they just had barrel chests, they had stacks, and they were like, when they walked around Corps school, they were the alphas there. And I had a very influential kind of influence there as well. His name was Dave Bayless, and he was a SARC corpsman. And I remember seeing him. He came in with the dive bubble and the jump wings. And dude, like if the FMF corpsmen carried themselves a certain way, when he showed up, man, everyone knew it. And I was like kind of fascinated. Remember looking at him being like, I want to be whatever he is.
So then coming out of Corps school straight to the Marine Corps, did you have to kind of wait your turn or anything like that? And getting assigned to a Marine Corps unit?
Yeah, see that once you get through boot camp, you go to A school and they start partitioning you even harder. And that's when I was fully in the dive mode program. So you're kind of like the football team there, and your whole job is to work out. You're getting up before everybody else, running, swimming, doing the PST stuff. And then you're going and sitting in class all day. So you got to show them every day the physical stuff. And then you got to be mentally there too, because they know like going through the 18 Delta course, you're not going to make it if you barely make it through Corps school, A school. Yep. So once you get through there, they do a very good job. The program they had, they were already ahead of it. They had follow-on orders, and they had everyone pretty squared away. So from there, I didn't have to wait too long before I got assigned straight to first recon to kind of cut my teeth. That was my holding period. So it wasn't like I was waiting at Corps school. They're like, no, we'll get you to first recon and they'll sort you out till your class up for BRC. So that's what happened to me.
Now that seems like a pretty big jump as a corpsman. I'll call it unproven, so to speak, to immediately be assigned to a recon unit. Mm-hmm. Or is that kind of normal?
Yeah, I think the preferred path would be that they would go to like the transition school, which is Fleet Marine Force, like FMF school, right? Which qualifies you as greenside. But, you know, at this time they're pushing people through and it's like, you got to wait for classes. And I think it might've been a little non-traditional, but I'm glad they did it that way.
How was the experience checking in with the Marine Corps?
It was terrifying, man. Yeah, it's so scary.
Pendleton?
Yeah. You show up, you see the blue diamond in the skull, and you just know stuff's different. Back then it was at Margarita, so it's in the middle of Camp Pendleton. And dude, no one can hear you scream out there. And as soon as you showed up, man, it's like, hey, you're amongst giants. They have a high standard, which is something I love about recon. It's just their traditions, and you know who you are real quick.
Before coming out to Pendleton, going back to you being the little kid in Oceanside, had you connected the two, how close you were going to be to your origination, so to speak, at that point?
Yeah, well, you don't really get a pick on West Coast or East Coast, right?
Oh, okay.
And me coming from Alabama, I don't know why they didn't send me to Camp Lejeune, right? My brother ended up going to Camp Lejeune. It just seemed intuitively like that would be the case. So me actually going to Camp Pendleton was just almost like divine that I would end up going out there and actually stomping on the same grounds I was born in, you know?
How'd you like it overall, though? I mean, in the sense, you said you were nervous, but on the flip side, everything I've heard is the corpsmen are really looked at with regard by the Marine Corps or by the other Marines. Did you get that immediate recognition, so to speak?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Marines were the least of my worries. It was the other corpsmen that were vicious.
Because you were getting a more selected billet?
Well, no, or they're already SARCs. Right? And okay. I'm this wet behind the ears kid thinking I'm going to be one of them. And part of the selection process was whether I
You got to hold up to our standards, so to speak.
Yeah. And I'm in their house and I'm nothing. And I better understand that. And I better be respectful. And I better that's part of the selection process too. It's like, cool, you can go through schools. There's athletes, right? But we either want you or you don't. And this selection starts here. So you can make it through all these schools, but at the end of the day, if we don't think you're a fit, we don't like you at any point in this process, that's our words trumps your ability at any moment, and you better know it.
How long is that selection process?
Yeah, it's a lot. I think it's around a year if you look at it in black and white, but with, layover times between schools and stuff, it can be between a year and a half, 2 years for some people to make it through this process.
Which of the schools gave you the biggest headache?
Yeah, I think, the physical stuff was easy, right? Because almost every special operations assessment selection, it's like the physical stuff is humanly possible, right? It's just in here that matters. And I had a great ability to disassociate just due to my upbringing. It was like I had a special place I could go where I could navigate that stuff a little bit easier than most, right? My stuff was going to be one, behavioral related things. So me, like the skeletons in my closet, the old behavior is starting to creep up that would cause some speed bumps for me. And then the 18 Delta course, man, it's the premier, trauma medicine course in the world for special operations medicine. And they hold a tight standard. It's very professional. And it was a fire hose. and they didn't care. You either could pick it up and you could adjust, you could learn it and demonstrate it on a timeline into a strict standard, or you couldn't. And like I said, I was never that good at school. So here we are, I'm in a very academic school and it's at the highest level. And it was a lot, man. I had to really break through some things. I had to figure out, I had to overcome a lot, and it was tough. The second one would be dive school, only because I had to do it twice.
18 Delta courses back at Benning?
No, Fort Bragg. And I don't know if they call it Bragg anymore or whatever, but back in my day, it was Fort Bragg.
And what was the issue with dive school?
Oh, dive school is just, dude, it's hard, man. It's hard. Like I said, my water confidence was like
Minimal
in the back of my mind. I'd done a lot of work at this point. So while I was at First Recon, I was at the pool every day, right? While I was at Field Med, I'm at the pool every day. So every opportunity I had to take some time, I was very proficient by the time I got to dive school. So, the capability was there now, the confidence was there, but still, it was still in the back of my mind, right? I knew how much I had to overcome that, to even get a shot at it, right? And then second was, it was big boy rules, right? So they're not treating you like a baby. In the morning, you're waking up, you're finning, you have class, but when you're off, and you're in Panama City. So it's really easy to go out there and get caught up at the bar. And that's kind of what happened to me. I ended up getting into a bar fight and ended up getting kicked out of the school. I think it's like 4 days before graduation. So this was already an insurmountable thing for me to overcome. And I do it and I was successful, but then my own stuff got in the way, which was like a huge kick in the nuts. Right. So I'm like, man, I overcame all that stuff and I was right there at the finish line and I couldn't handle my booze and I got in trouble, which set me back a little bit of time. They made it pretty seamlessly for me, but man, that was a tough one to have to overcome.
How much downtime did they make you take before you recycled through it again?
Yeah. So the dilemma there is that I think I had not been to, I think it was my last school actually. So I had to go to the dive medic portion after that, which is like another 5 or something weeks. And so they could have kicked me out of the pipeline. So if if I didn't have the right people in my corner, they very well could have sent me to the grunts or anything else, which is fine. Nothing against the grunts. But it would have been really tough to go through all of that and not get to, get the MOS and go do what I wanted to do. So they ended up putting me on restriction. So I did like 45 days restriction in Pensacola. They knocked me down a rank and I had to wait for orders. Luckily, while I was in there, I made friends with the people that were in charge of me. I did a good job. I honored it and I got to make some phone calls back to First Recon. I said, hey man, I'm sorry. I messed up. If you give me a shot, I won't, I'll make it worth it. Like I promise you, I'll change. I'll do what I need to do. And they got me orders back to First Recon. So I went out there. It wasn't long. Just had to sweep the floors, do a couple pre-dives. They assigned me to a company temporarily. So I went and did coverage and stuff for them. And then before I know it, I was back in the chute to go to back to dive school.
And so when are you actually assigned to a team after all of this?
Yeah. So once you graduate from there, you get your first official team.
Right.
Yeah.
When did that happen for you? When are you actually calendar wise, when are you actually assigned to a team?
Yeah, I think it was late 2007, like maybe early 2008.
And how soon after you're getting there are you told, hey, okay, we're spinning up to deploy?
Yeah, it was immediate. Yeah, they're on a very rapid deployment cycle at this point. There's nobody hanging out. So you're getting ready, you're doing workup, or you're on deployment. And they were just knocking it out. So I came into recon. It was like the end of the Iraq campaign. There's some leave behind units. The Army was still doing stuff, but for the most part, recon was done around that time frame. So I'm also showing up and we got these salty dogs coming back from Iraq. So you're trying to get in where you fit in. And, but it was a very quick turnaround cycle. So it's like 18 months, if you're lucky, between deployments. And that's to include workups, jump packages, dive packages, proficiency certifications, all this stuff.
So when did you deploy then?
My first deployment ended up being right at the end of 2010. Yeah. I got assigned to a MU and we're doing kind of some counter piracy stuff off the Horn of Africa. Just kind of actually, ironically, all the stuff that's in the news today is all things that we were prepping for back then. I vividly remember the Strait of Hormuz and passing through it. I remember the heightened posture around these areas and them telling us that at any point this could be a possibility. We could be in an engagement or something like that. But so this is stuff that we're seeing now that was, we were preparing for back then.
So once you're fully into it, you're deployed with a unit, you're fully operational. Is it everything you thought you wanted out of it at that point?
Yeah, it was, dude. Yeah, it was right where I wanted to be. It was awesome. Yeah, and I loved it. Yeah, it was, it sucked at times. They rode you hard and put you up wet. But man, I did love it. Yeah.
How long did that first deployment end up being?
Yeah, I think it was around 6 months. Yep.
Came back home to Pendleton. Are you now at this point? What are you thinking for long term? Are you thinking long term in any aspect of your career or your life? Or are you just looking at like, all right, let's just look at the next deployment?
Yeah. I was thinking I thought I was going to do one enlistment and be done. Yep. The idea of staying 20 years, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But actually on that first deployment, I was up for re-enlistment, and they gave me a nice sign-on bonus. They gave me some rank.
Little carrot to keep you
They
going.
made it so easy. Yep. So that's why I ended up signing that next 6-year enlistment. It was like, they made it easy for me.
But now in that 6 years, anything in the sense that would keep you going longer? Or did you know coming to the end of that enlistment, that's it?
At the end of the second enlistment?
One.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. At this point, I had some combat time there. I'd been around. I'd done a lot of different things. And just I think it was the op tempo of the job. Thinking back on it, if I would have just taken a shore duty here or there, maybe I would have been okay, but I didn't. All I wanted to do was deploy. So I stayed on sea duty the whole time, and I just stayed at that op tempo. And like I said, the deployment's one thing. It's just the workup and everything that comes behind it that really starts to wear you out. And then especially in special operations, it's like, we're not doing a lot of training at home. Right. We're not doing a lot of training on Camp Pendleton. It's like, we're flying to Albuquerque. We're flying to the mountains. We're flying here or there. So it's like, even when you're back, you're gone most of the time. And that started to wear you on my family, because when you're deployed and you're doing what you need to do. But when you're back and you're gone and you're partying and you're doing all the other stuff, it's like, it's really hard on your family. It's hard to justify it to them. And I wasn't the best at that. Right? I didn't really have a dad to show me how to lead a family. So, even when I was back home, I could have done a better job. So there's a lot of things that I would like to blame on the Marine Corps in my job, but it was really just me not really knowing how to lead a family and be present. Hadn't done any self-work yet. So it was like, it was all just compounding on each other, which led to the point where I needed to make the decision to maybe find a different pace and a different route.
You mentioned some of the salty dogs when you first got there. On the flip side, though, nobody kind of taking you under their wing and kind of trying to mentor you and help you make some better career decisions, like, hey, maybe you come off the line, maybe you take a shore duty, to help you kind of navigate your path?
No, man. They were all burning it at both ends. That's just what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just hard as woodpecker lips. It was the old school way. And it was, hey, you're going to war. So, and I appreciated that. They'd say things like, you never pet a fighting dog. Right. It's just a real hard-nosed Marine Corps way. And I love it, actually. In hindsight, it's contradictory to anything I would tell anybody today and what I do.
Hindsight's 2020, man.
But when you're making war fighters, dude, and you're going to war, I mean, there's a Spartan thing about it, right? And I respected it. So needless to say, all of us were hurting. All of us were tired. And even the ones that were leading me that probably would have, and they had tremendous wisdom, they were burning at both ends, man. They're having the same relational issues. We're all just trying to dig deep. There wasn't, much of that.
Now, you mentioned balancing a family. So are you married at this point?
Yeah. So I'm married. Even though I left the South, I kept the mentality. So I met this young lady at Corps School, right? And decided she was the one. And we maintained our relationship through there. Ended up getting stationed in different places, actually, for our first duty station. She went to Camp Lejeune, and I was out in Camp Pendleton. And by all intents and purposes, we shouldn't have made it. But, we fought through it. We had to overcome a lot. And we've been married for 20 years now. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Was it equal for both of you in wanting to get out or wanting to stay in? Or were you guys kind of on different pages for both of your careers?
Yeah. So she was on the dental tech side of the house. So she ended up doing that, working at the MCRDs, cleaning teeth of recruits, and actually got a higher functioning job where she would actually fill the teeth and things like that. So, but once we had my son, and she had to drop our son off at 0400 in the morning so she could go stand in a square to talk about arbitrary stuff to start her day, she said, I'm not doing this no more. We're like having to figure out how to cover down on who's going to watch our kid when she has duty for some stupid reason, like watching the dental clinic that's not open. She was like, you know what? Like, yeah, I'm good on this. Like, I did my part. I actually want to be a mom, and I'm going to take care of my son. And I supported her 100%. I get it. So she said, hey, you keep going as long as you need to, do what you need to do, pay these bills. I'm going to go to school and get my degree. And whenever you're ready to transition, we can, swap out. And that's how it worked out.
we're going to get into talking about sharp performance and the work you're doing today. Mm-hmm. But now that you've had some time to process it, anything from that time while you were in the military that maybe didn't stand out to you at that time, but now you really kind of look back and go, oh, that experience is really helping me today?
Oh yeah, everything. Yeah, I mean, it's just so crazy how much it mirrors the work that I'm doing with the people I am, working with law enforcement, firefighters, etc. The identity, I was obsessed. I was nobody in Alabama, dude. Nobody. I was this poor trailer park kid. And I come in, they put this uniform on me. Now we're all wearing the same uniform. So now we're the same. It doesn't matter how much money your daddy had. It's like, I run faster than you, bro. I jump higher. I do more pull-ups. I can outswim you. Right. And for the first time, it allowed me to break that old identity and create this new one. And there was something that the Marine Corps takes a lot of pride in their uniforms too, right? You don't just wear a sloppy uniform. So it's like, I felt proud in it. We're holding each other accountable. And there's like this brotherly love. I have a tribe now, right? A tribe that's like going somewhere, that's pushing each other to be better. So I fully got and understand becoming obsessed with the job and losing yourself in it. I lost myself in the job so much that I forgot to maintain my outside support structures, which was my family. Got to see the stress it puts on the family, got to see how difficult it is to transition and what it feels like to take that uniform off and to be another dude just sitting in the line at the DMV. I got to see so many things that directly translate and give me kind of credibility when I show up for the people I do these days.
How was it coming towards that transition in the sense that, okay, you knew you were done. You knew at the end of your enlistment, you were going to get out. Are you already starting to see, and this is the look in the mirror type thing. Are you recognizing what you're doing to your family at this point? And is that what part of the drive to get out of the military? Has that realization happened yet?
Yeah, it has. One thing that comes to mind when you ask me this question is I remember I came back from deployment.
There's a moment in life when you realize it was never about you. Grind, spelled GRND, is different. There's no I in it on purpose, because the mindset was never about ego. It's about the mission. Started by a former Army Ranger, it's not about where you are. It's about how you show up. Different lives, different pressures, but the same mindset. Grind isn't clothing you wear just to look good. It's a reminder of why you keep going when it gets tough, and you keep putting in the work when no one's watching. For the early mornings, the late nights, the reps that no one sees. This isn't just fashion, it's fuel. Because real work isn't loud, real effort doesn't need applause, and real purpose doesn't quit. Head on over to thegrndcollective.com and use the promo code transition15 for 15% off your order.
And I remember I was up in the morning, it's like making coffee or something, and my son comes out, and I expect him to be like kind of happy to see me. He's like, "Oh, hi, Dad." And I was like, "Oh, hey, buddy." And then I remember my wife was right behind me, probably smelled the coffee, and she comes in, and my son goes, "Hey, Mom, when's Dad going to leave again? Because it's better when he's gone." And I was like, oh, dude, everything in me wanted to be mad at him, this little boy. He's a baby. But it was a moment like where I had to realize, I'm like, oh God, like, is that how he feels? He can't be wrong. He's a child, And it was the little things, like he got so used to sleeping in the bed with my wife that when I came home, like I'm kicking him out.
You're upsetting the apple cart, man.
Yeah, man. And I was like, dude, I don't want that. I didn't have a dad. Right. And I was like, dude, I want to do better. I don't know what it looks like, but I really want to try better, and then just the things like the alcohol abuse was just getting bad. It went from me just like partying with friends and being a young, dumb sailor to like needing to drink to go to sleep. Like I'm waking up and I have 7 IPA bottles next to my bed. And I'm like, I just didn't like it. It just felt like a mess. I felt gross. I didn't feel good. And I'm doing just crazy stuff. And so it was all these issues started to raise my awareness.
And your boy is how old at this point?
He's probably 7. Yeah.
Now, again, going back to the connection with family, have you made connection or reconnection with any family that you had here in the Oceanside area while you were at Pendleton?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I kept a letter from my grandma. It was like one of my prized possessions. I've spoken about this before, but I had a letter from her and a pound puppy, right? And these were these things that no matter where we jumped around, no matter how many bags of like trash bags we threw our stuff in and bailed out, like I kept these things. So in there had my grandma's address. This was back in like 2006. I had like maybe one of those brick Nokia phones or a flip phone. It wasn't nothing compared to today, But I remember I wrote a letter to that address and it said, "Hey, Grandma, I'm your grandson. If you still live at this address, I'm in the military now. You'd be proud of me. And here's my phone number. So if you want to give me a call, I'd love to hear from you."
And by the way, I'm just literally down the street.
Well,
no pun intended.
Yeah. Yep. So we send it out through good old Navy mail, and it takes a couple weeks. And I remember I get a phone call on that phone. She says, I was actually working that day, so I didn't bring my phone with me, right? Painting walls or something, whatever I was doing. And I get back and she's like, "Hi, I'm your grandma, and give us a ring." So I call her back and I was like, "Hey, I'm in town. Like, I'd love to see you." And she's like, "Well, we're actually down near El Centro," which is
they've moved.
Yeah, quite a ways from Oceanside.
Yes.
And I was like, "Well, Grandma, I don't have a car, but I'd like to see you." And she's like, "Well, any grandson of mine will figure it out." And I was like, "The hell?"
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I was taken back a little bit by it, though. I was like, because I had grandparents in Alabama and they would have never done that. They would have came and got me, but it's okay. All good. So I said, "Yeah, challenge accepted." I asked my buddy Neil, he had a car. It's like, "Hey, will you drive me to El Centro?" And he's like, "No, man, no. You know where that's at?" And I was like, "No." We like look at MapQuest or whatever back then. I was like, "All right, yeah, it's quite some time." It's like, "But what I will do is take you to Oceanside and put you on the bus and you can figure it out." I was like, "All right, well, I've been on a bus before." So that's what I did. Rode the bus down to El Centro. My grandpa picked me up, and I remember he brought me back to their house. It was early in the morning. It was like 2 hours, two in the morning. And I remember I seen the height markings of me when they had tracked my height. My pictures were still on their mantle, and it was awesome.
Where I'm going with this is because you leave Oceanside, you go to Alabama, you really don't have a reference point back to California, but now you're spending several years signing the Marines here at Pendleton. Is your plan long-term to stay in California at this point? Or are you thinking, you and your wife thinking, hey, let's maybe go back to Alabama or someplace else? What was your game plan?
Yeah, I think at the time, this was home. My wife's from here. She's from SoCal and, around Palm Springs area. She's very close with her family. They very quickly integrated me into their family, and it was home. At some point we did move away, but at this time for the foreseeable future, that wasn't in the cards.
And so you EAS'd when?
2017.
And how was that? You already kind of alluded to it, but when does the first time that it really kind of hit you that you're now a civilian and you got to start being a civilian again? You're no longer the guy in the uniform, part of the team, so to speak.
Yeah, I think when that first paycheck didn't hit, I think it was right out the gate where I was like, "Oh, dang, man." When I realized I don't have insurance. My family doesn't have insurance. Yeah, I'm still riding a motorcycle, and I'm looking at the motorcycle saying, I think our days are limited too, buddy, Yeah, but very quickly, once that paycheck stops, you forget that you take that for granted as well. I'd taken a lot for granted, but, it was time, but it was kind of a face the music moment where I'm like, oh, it just got real.
Had you not put anything in place or tried to put anything in place before getting out?
No, man. I mean, one thing I did.
That would take pre-planning.
Well, yeah. And when you're in survival mode, everything's a life raft. And, I just was living day to day and taking a lot of things for granted. And that's always kind of been my way too. Like, I'll figure it out. It's been to my demise. It's been very good. But, lack some planning there. The one thing I did do that was good was at MARSOC in Bravo Company, I had a junior medic that was awesome. His name was Chris. And the 18 Delta course had a relationship with George Washington University where they would acknowledge the work that you did at 18 Delta and allow you to do an undergrad there. It was like kind of a pre-med undergrad. And I hated school, never wanted to do school, but I remember Chris influenced me. So thank you, Chris, for that. He's like, "Let's just do it, man. It's like free credits. It's a good school." He's like, "We'll do it together and it'll be fine." And he actually motivated me and the majority of the SARCs on the team to do it. So that was the only preparation I had done, is I had started chipping away at that diploma and that undergrad. So I was like probably halfway through my bachelor's, and that was it.
From your last deployment to when you EAS, what's the window? How big of time period are you talking about?
Oh, it's a turn and burn. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I can't remember when I got back from that deployment, but I EAS'd in June. And I was probably back boots on ground in the U.S. in like May.
So it literally was land, basically turning your gear, and there's the gate.
That's it. Yeah. Yep.
And you didn't have anything lined up, but did you have any idea what you thought you wanted to do?
Yeah, I thought I was going to go be a trauma surgeon.
Lofty goal.
Oh yeah. I was like, I am horrible at school, right? I'm impatient, right? It's like, yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, you know what? I was, taught how to do total IV anesthesia in the military and amputations. It's like, it's going to be a cakewalk. if you can pass 18 Delta, what's college, right? And, I think it was just looking at the coursework and how long it was going to take. And we're talking 8, 10, 12 years maybe. And that's when I was like, uh-oh, right? Even though I kept going through and I ended up getting my undergrad there from George Washington, I still wanted to do it. Like, being honest with you, I was a bit overwhelmed by how long it was going to take. Also knowing that you're not going to get a paycheck for a long time.
Right.
And it's just, I'm the man of the house. I'm not making any money. It's like, so even that was like, maybe that's not going to be the path for me. Maybe I need to find something a little bit quicker. So, that was the first little like question in that plan.
So you never even seriously looked at medical school?
No, I did seriously look. Yeah, I finished my undergrad stuff at George Washington. I started applying to some programs at Yale, and I was in that process. Another discouraging part was realizing that, that undergrad alone wasn't going to get me. There were still some prereqs I'd have to do,
right.
Quite a few. But yeah, I did. I started the application process, had my letters of recommendation. I was going to go that direction.
Do you remember what you've talked about, how there were a lot of factors that you had to look at, like, man, 8, 10, 12 years old. But was there one singular event or factor that you just kind of went, nope, that's not going to work for me? Or was it that just the totality of everything?
Yeah. The academic thing wasn't the line in the road for me. What started happening is people started dying. Yeah. Started getting the phone calls of people committing suicide, to include my brother, my best friend, many teammates. And that's when I started to realize, dude, that I had been burning it at both ends and I wasn't well. And no matter what, like, I wasn't going to make it through 8 to 10 years if I didn't start sorting out some of my stuff then. So it was almost like a call to action, seeing all these people that I really cared about, some people that very like surprised me that they would take their lives, and me looking in the mirror and saying, hey man, you're not okay. Right? If the whispers can get to all of them, they can get to you, dude. And like, I wasn't feeling good, man. And
was your brother still in when he took his life?
No, he was already out. So he took his life right after I got out of the military too, in 2017. So it was like wham, bam. The reality started hitting hard right there, right off the bat.
Is it safe to assume that all of that's pushing you into more drinking?
No, I don't think so at that point, but it would have been an easy catalyst for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I think everything was already kind of just doing the way it was. It was just another thing. Right. So that was kind of the reality check for me, where I started to realize and look at it. And this is where I started working on myself, started kind of venturing into the VA mental health care system, seeing the gaps in there, realizing like if they cared, I couldn't tell. And if they did care, they didn't know me. They didn't understand me. Right. It's like they're kind of checking boxes real quick to push that PTSD button. And, I'm grateful for all the resources that I'm allotted through the VA and things like this. But, that gap started to be revealed to me. And I started to see like, man, if my brother was dealing with this, no wonder he felt upside down. No wonder he said okay to the psych cocktail and all these different things that I believe ultimately led to his demise. So I started to kind of look into that, started to do the work, started to get exposed to some other options, some other resources that aren't necessarily afforded to everybody or advertised at the VA level. And I started to see some changes, man.
How did you come to find those extra or those other alternative options for yourself?
Yeah, I think I had some friends that were in some desperate need. So for me, and I like to joke about this, it's like I'll let me down almost all the time, but I'm not going to let you down, man.
Right.
I'm not going to let these other people down. And something about me finds a lot of purpose in that. And I had some friends that called me and they were on the bubble. And I said, you know what, let's figure this out. So I didn't even do it selfishly for me, or not even selfishly. I didn't even do it with me in mind. But
you were looking for them.
Yep. I said, you know what, if you do this, I'll do this with you. So even by proxy, I went on that path with them as a support agent. And actually, it's like I needed it just as much as everyone else did.
Did you ever get to any point where you contemplated your own suicide?
No. Thank God. Thank God. Yeah, I have not. I haven't struggled with it, but I do get it. I get tired too.
Right.
I get it. And especially working in this space, getting like vicarious trauma and all these things too. It's like I'd be lying if I said I don't understand how a man could get so tired, or they just get tired of fighting. I've had to go back and forth on my ideas about suicide too. I grew up very religious and I thought it was a sin and it was bad and you're going to burn in hell forever. And then I went through a phase where I thought it was weak and it was cowardice to kill yourself. And then people I cared about and I love very much, and I watched them go through the journey, kill themselves, and I watched them do everything they could and work really hard. So I've had to like come to terms with that many times. Where now it's like I'm at a point now where it's like I respect a person's ability to hit the reset button. All right. Now I want to fight for your life. And I think this life is beautiful and it's worth living. But I don't think you're a selfish asshole. I don't think that you're weak. I do understand. But man, if I can spend some time with you, and if I can get you some resources and we can get you to find that peace in your life again, I want to do everything I can to do that. But I do get it.
Have you heard the name Travis Howes? Do you know who he is?
I do know that name. I don't know him personally, but I'm familiar with that name.
So I've heard him on other podcasts. I've actually seen him speak in person. Marine, he did both sides. He did the fire side, he did the police side, then went back to the fire side. Yeah. And then, had a horrendous experience with a fire in South Carolina, lost close friends. But the way he explained it was, when I say eye-opening, it just a perspective that I never thought about it before. And he says it's basically like somebody comes up to you and says, hey, here's a 45-pound weight. Now carry this every single day of your life. But guess what? 3 months from now, I'm going to give you another 45-pound plate. Mm-hmm. And basically he ends the way he ends the analogy is you get to a point where you feel like you're carrying so much that you feel that weight is now starting to draw your family down.
Yeah.
And the only way you feel that you can protect them is you cut that line. And it just put a different perspective for me that I had never even considered before.
Oh yeah.
How why somebody could get to that point where like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because I'm dragging everybody else around me down.
Yeah.
And that's the way they see it. So
yeah,
very powerful.
Yeah. I guarantee the people in my life that took their lives felt very similar. Right.
Yeah.
So I like that analogy too. Something I like to talk about, because we talk about PTSD a lot and things like that and why it might end up in suicide. And one of the things I think that's hard to understand unless you've been there, it's like some of these things are like reality dissolution moments, right? And I like to say, like, when you go to war and you can see the atrocities of war, you see what happens to the indigenous population and all the things that happen as a nature of your presence there. When you come back to this reality, it's hard to see it the same again, mm-hmm. right? The reality that you thought this was, the magic, all these things that happen here just seem to dissolve. And it can make living here kind of in this matrix difficult. I like this kind of correlate it to like Santa Claus, right? Once you realize that Santa Claus isn't real, right? Once that third grader tells you or however young you were, first off, you don't want to believe it. But then you have to come to terms with it. And then once you believe it, you realize that everybody in your life is capable of lying to you too. And you're like, oh, this is kind of weird. And your reality will never be the same. Santa Claus will never be real for you again. Right. And I think that some of these experiences that law enforcement, firefighters, and, military members go through don't allow them to see this world the same way again. And that can be very difficult. Right?
Well, the thing for me is that these chosen professions allow you to see the absolute worst mm-hmm. of what another human being is willing to do and capable to do to another human being. And to think that you could come out of that and be normal, it's going to have an impact on you. And my new thing is now I am 100% a young man, a young woman comes into these professions. It's got to be, hey, how does it make you feel? We may not be able to pull you off the line right at this moment because we got a job to do. But as soon as we have time to take a knee, what can we do to help you out and get you through this process? Because what you're experiencing, the average person will never experience. And we've got to be better about protecting the young men and women who choose to do these professions so that they can pop out the other side as best as possible. I don't think that like you mentioned, when you got into the military, man, those guys were, hey, it's all about the team and the unit. You're third in this list. Mm-hmm. And that's not healthy because these rides all come to an end. And now you got to go be that regular person again. Mm-hmm. So taking care of each other and making sure that we're taking care of the people who are serving us is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you, and you're not the only one who's told me these stories about the experience with the VA and the medication cocktail. Hey, take this. And I've heard many guests talk about how it just puts you in a fog. And so they, on their own, are like, I can't do this anymore. But on the flip side to that, what were the positive experiences? Now, you said you went and found some stuff on your own, but what was the first positive experience that you had that really kind of helped you as opposed to made you kind of feel like, man, you're not even getting me. You're not even seeing me.
Yeah. So I got connected with a coach, and this coach was a prior Navy SEAL. And man, I'm still friends with him today. I talked to him last week. And it was the first time where I really just felt like he fully understood me. So we could get past all that part, right? He's the first person that kind of taught me about my nervous system and like helping me understand. And it's like, dude, you've been living in fight or flight this whole time and it's wearing you out, man. He started giving me some tips. And because we had that rapport and I respected his opinion, like I was able to do things that I would have written off. If a regular therapist would have told me to do some of these things, I'd have been like, what do you know? Right. But because he said it and I had respect for him, like I actually did this stuff. So this is when I starting to see a real change in my body, or a real change in my mindset. And then when it really started to become apparent, when I saw a change with my family dynamic, where me and my wife aren't fighting all the time anymore. I'm not throwing bowls of salad across the room because for whatever stupid reason, right? My kids start to want to be around me. They're snuggling me. And I was like, oh man, like something's changing here. And when he taught me about operator syndrome, he shared with me, he's like, hey dude, like there's a framework here and it's all about stress. It's not about being weak, right? It's not special forces, PTSD. It's like a framework of how your body processes stress and it manifests and it's absolutely normal, man. You're a human being. Your nervous system was built on a hunter-gatherer frame. Right? It wasn't supposed to go into fight or flight as many times as it does, right? And these are these manifestations, but if we dial it in, get you to stop drinking, eating better, moving your body, right? We can fix it. And dude, it worked, bro. So that was the first kind of glimpse behind the curtain where I'm like, there's something in this mind-body connection thing. Like this, it's not all woo-woo mumbo jumbo. And it gave me a sense of novelty too, that kind of sparked my interest into the mental health space and was a catalyst for me to move forward that direction.
And so when did you get into that space?
Yeah, I got into, I'm the worst with dates, but I know this was all around 2020, right? And I remember I was doing online courses through there. So I must have had already started this journey at that point.
And when you found him, was he directly connected with formal therapy or just somebody you randomly came across?
No, he's connected through some veteran nonprofit groups. His specifically was the Mission Within.
Got it.
Yeah, so I got connected with him through there.
Now, before we get into in depth about Sharp, what are you still doing for yourself today?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, I call it the basics. So there's some things for me, and this is something I try to impart on everyone that I work, that some of these things are forever, right? It's not like I'm just going to meditate today and be better. It's like, no, this is a practice that I have to do consistently every day. So I have a very deep meditation practice, right? That I have to do it because the mind will run rampant and my mind will just spin me until I'm absolutely worn out. And if I don't take a concerted effort to slow things down and then get things out of my mind through like a journaling practice, right, I have to hit the gym. Working out for me is not about vanity. It's not about my muscles. It is absolutely mental health for me, right? I need to go in there and put my headphones in and nothing else matters besides me and what's on that bar. And it's an absolutely important part of me to keep my physical fitness there. You know, I have to maintain an arm's length distance in relationship with booze, right? So that's one of the two things that are my key indicators for me and red flags is if I start wanting to drink and then if I start wanting to eat Taco Bell, right? Or a double cheeseburger. It's funny. And I do eat these things sometimes, but I that's my red flags when I'm like thinking about going and getting fast food. I'm like, oh, bro, you're okay. You haven't meditated in a few days. You're not doing the basics. You're not sleeping well. Right. But I just like to call it the basics: moving, sleeping, keeping booze and substances away, meditation. That's the basics. Spending time with my family, being able to disconnect from work when I'm off work. Right. And yeah, that's how I keep my head above water.
So then let's talk about Sharp. How do you come to be involved with it and what is it all about?
Yeah. So, like I said, I wish I would have put some numbers down for you, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. In a prior job, so I got connected with a dude named Tom Sauer.
When you look forward to that first cup of coffee, as soon as that morning alarm goes off, then Blue Line Roasting is the choice for you. They're a Tennessee-based law enforcement-owned company. They're roasting small batches of premium coffee, fresh, within 48 hours of your ordering, and shipped fast so it doesn't sit around getting stale. From Patriot, their light roast, to Failure Drill, their dark roast. They've got something that fits whatever you prefer. Whole bean or ground, it's your call. But Blue Line Roasting is more than just good coffee. A portion of every purchase goes to support law enforcement families who are dealing with line of duty injury or loss. so your morning routine becomes something bigger. Great coffee and real impact. Grab a single bag, try a sampler, or set up a subscription so you're never caught without it. Shipping is always free. And for the listeners of this podcast, use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your order. Head on over to bluelineroasting.com and make your morning count.
And Tom Sauer ran a dual diagnosis treatment facility that was owned by veterans for veterans. And essentially the model there was, if you have an alcohol or drug abuse problem and you have a mental health diagnosis from the VA, we'd fly out and get you. And we'd take you to a treatment facility, an inpatient treatment facility around other veterans, with veterans leading it to get you better. And me and a dude named Brendan, who I worked with prior, worked with Tom. So me and Brendan, our job was to fly around all the West Coast and just go and essentially rescue these guys. And it was such a good job, man. I loved it. And I probably would have stayed there forever, except for during that time while I was there, right when I got there, the VA changed their policy. And instead of like giving funding to community care, they had this Choose VA initiative. So they were no longer giving outside people support and giving referrals out to third party people in civilian privately owned operations. They weren't set up to take care of it, but essentially it was like we were willing to let people just die outside of the domiciliary instead of give these other people funding. I don't know why. I'm not going to speculate on politics, but it ultimately ended up like kind of crushing our ability to do that work. And we were doing great work, right? So, you know, as we're driving along, trying to find these veterans, sometimes we had to track them down, sometimes we didn't. I would talk to Brennan and he knew Max Bush, and Max Bush had come on the team for Sharp Performance. So he's talking to Brennan. He's like, hey, I think we need you on this team. And Brennan's talking to me. He's like, there's these guys, you know, prior Green Beret, you know, they're trying to do these things with first responders and all this stuff. And at the time I was so busy, man. I was like, cool, man. That sounds cool. I wish them well. Why are you telling me this? I don't know. I'm just kind of, you know, just telling you. I'm like,
planting the seed.
I'm like, all right, well, let's find this guy. All right. And he just wouldn't stop. Brennan would not stop. Every time we'd go on a trip, he's like, you know, have you thought about Sharp? And I'm like, yes, man, you told me. Like, what's the big deal? So, you know, I just keep hearing him out and whatever, but he didn't stop. Well, ultimately, on one of these trips, I had this epiphany. I was up in Montana and I'd driven for like 4 hours, didn't see another person. And we had made it through COVID. And I said, you know what, man, like, I don't want to be in California no more. Like the chaos of this wore on me. And I'm tired of the chaos. You know, where we live here, it's chaotic. We were talking about that when I first came. It's like, it's just
a little congested.
Just the traffic alone will start to wear you out. Right. And I told my wife, I said, hey, I got this vision that like, if we can move to Alabama, if we move away from here, like doors are going to open that we don't know yet. And it's going to be the right path. And it's going to bring us to a place we've never made it so far. She said, you know what? I believe you. I trust you. I'm not so sure about Alabama, but you know what? Like you have family there. Let's go check in with them. Let's see. So I bought her a beautiful house in the town that I grew up in. It was a bit redemptive for me because I was a trailer park kid when I left. And now I'm coming back and I have a nice house on 2 acres. It's like, I was like, I made it back. Like, look at me, you know, I made it. And we went out there and I was going to work for the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And I was working in psychedelic research at the time and they had a program, but UAB was being weird, man. They're doing some type of equity stuff. I don't know, some letters and all this weird stuff. And they wanted to pay me pennies on the dollar to be a therapist with experience. I'd already worked on other research teams and it was a bad taste. And so I waved off on that. But before I moved to Alabama, I finally took that call with Andrew. So I finally said, Brendan, all right, I'm moving to Alabama. I don't know what this is going to look like. I might need a plan B. And I met Andrew and he told me more about what he's doing. I was like, okay, all right. He said, we need coaches. It's kind of new. I think we had one department at the time. He's like, not so sure how this is going to work, but yeah, man, I think you're a good fit. I'm like, okay. So I move out there. The stuff with UAB isn't working out. And I'm like, I'm working hard for Andrew. I'm like, well, I guess I got more time. Give me more members. Let's see. This trial's going. I start becoming an integral part of the team. I start like taking on more stuff. Right. And ultimately he's like, hey man, how about coming on full time? I was like, man, I'd love to. Okay. So the stuff with the UAB fell through and ultimately we started growing and growing. Andrew and them were in New York at the time. And he hits me up one day and he goes, hey, we're moving to California. It's like, will you come with us? I'm like, I don't know, man. I just moved across country, dude. I just sold a house, bought a house in this market. It's kind of crazy. And I went down, I discussed it with my wife and she's like, oh, we can go back to my family in California. You know, it's after she'd already weathered a Alabama winter and an Alabama summer at this point. And
I was going to say, Worst part's got to be in Alabama summer.
Oh, bro, yeah, it's bad. The bugs and everything, dude. It's a real thing, man. It's not for the faint of heart, right? You have to actually develop a personality out there, right? So, I ran it by her and she's like, yeah, okay. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Didn't have much in the tank, but Andrew and them took very good care of me. And they made sure I got white glove service, packed me up and got me out there. I said, okay, I'm going to go on this journey with you guys. Let's go. So I was all in at that point. Sold everything and moved on out and then joined the team. And then very quickly from there, it's like we started building, started working hard, became an integral part of that team, and then ultimately became the head of coaching.
And what's Sharp's primary mission set?
Yeah, our primary mission set is showing up for the nation's high-risk professionals, right? And our initial vision was, we had kind of two pots. We have everyone working on the front lines right now, and we have so much respect for our first responders. Like, we love you guys. We're so grateful for everything you do. We couldn't have left as much as we did if we didn't have you back home to call 911 to be here, right? And another part was a growing pot of people that need a tribe, a growing pot of people that have tremendous wisdom and experience. And we wanted to connect them with the people that needed the most on the front lines and bring those resources that we learned in the military. We had tremendous therapists. We had everything. They didn't spare any expense on getting us the best holistic wellness programs. We wanted to bring some of that lessons learned, some of the things we learned on our journey, and connect these two together. So we're empowering this group of people that needs a new purpose, right? And needs a new tribe. And we're connecting them with people on the front lines. And it seemed to work out very well.
When does the pivot happen though? Because as maybe don't know, I'm connected now with Sharp. Mm-hmm. I am one of the coaches. It's not just the mental health component. It's the leadership, mentorship. It's the complete umbrella. When does that pivot happen and when does that growth come?
Yeah. Well, I think it was the incorporation of operator syndrome, right? And we can talk through that. And then I also want to say that the mental health part of it's almost a side effect of what we're doing, right? The mental health is not the primary part. It's a secondary part. The physiology is the main part, right? It's the transition, the help through these transitional phases and the preparation of like the professional development, that it's like when we can dial in this physiology and all these other things and get you the support you need and someone that gets you, the mental health part increases. So that's not our main mission, is to help mental health. We're not a mental health company. We're a performance coaching company. So it's like we're almost raising both boats at the same time, right?
Yeah, because you figure it in. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a therapist, but the logic side of it is, if I improve other aspects of my life that's weighing me down, that inherently it's going to improve my overall mental health. Mm-hmm. I mean, in a very broad scope of a thought process.
Yeah. If you're sleeping 2 hours a night and I can get you sleeping 7 hours a night, your mental health is going to improve.
Right?
You're drinking every night, not working out. Right. And I can get you to stop drinking so much and start working out. Your mental health is going to improve. Right. If we get you to go and get your blood test done, right, and your hormone panels in the dumps, right, and your testosterone's at 28, right, and you're a male and it should be, 500 or more or whatever the number is, and we can help you get the resources you need, right, to improve that, dude, your mental health is going to get better. So it's like, we really focus on that physiology part, one, and two, it's having someone that sits across from you that has the same look in their eye. One that you can't learn in a book, you can't learn at school. They've actually walked, talked, eat and slept it, right? And it was a part of their life, and they have the lived experience. They have true cultural competency to understand. And I'm thinking when you can mix all those things together, like some magic can happen.
Before we talk about operator syndrome and give you the opportunity to kind of give that overview, I just want to hit on something though, taking a step backwards. And this is not related to Sharp, but your experience with the psychedelics and that avenue that's becoming more prevalent, especially for the veteran community. What's your take on it?
Yeah. I don't think there's any shortcuts in this world, right? It's all work, and it's that practice that I talked about, in psychedelics, there's something there, right? There's something there. It had a huge impact in my healing journey. It's not woo woo. It's not this just like hippie stuff, right? That was of the 60s. I think in the right hands, in the right set and setting, in a professional environment, there's a lot of healing that can occur. That being said, it's not for everybody, right? It's not for everybody. And you have to be very mindful of that process and what you're signing up for. We kind of talked about reality dissolution moments, like war can be one, the loss of life, whatever, your life not going the way you thought it was going to be because of whatever situation. Some of these psychedelic experiences can be like that, where it's like you're shuffling the deck and you're getting a new set of cards and you don't necessarily get to pick that, right? But no matter what set of cards you have, as long as you have the right pre-integration and post-integration support, this all can work out very well. But if you're working in maybe a gray market area of this, you're doing it willy-nilly by yourself and you don't have the support that you need and is absolutely necessary, or a community with the right vocabulary around you to help you navigate this space, you can do more harm than good, right? So I don't think it's a cookie cutter solution. It's definitely not an easy fix. It takes work and it takes the right people in your corner to do it. So that'd be like kind of my cautionary tale with that type of stuff. But I'm a big supporter of it.
Was it profound enough for you that you think you might do it again? Or was it enough to where it, and I'll use the term, got you over the hump, to where now it's more you can maintain through your meditation that aspect? Or do you ever see yourself going back to it?
Yeah. Well, I'll say it like this. You don't need anything else. Everything you need is within you. Everything you need to get any point of enlightenment, to work through any process that you have, is absolutely within you, right? And you absolutely can do all of this through breath work. You can do all of it through meditation. You can do all of it through your religious practices, right? As long as you're devoted through this process and have that belief in yourself, you can. So you don't need anything exogenous. Everything's within you. Some of the biggest breakthroughs and most profound experiences I've had is through breath work, through an intense holotropic practice of like 45 minutes to an hour. I've had bigger breakthroughs than 5-MeO DMT, which is crazy. But everything you have is right here. You don't need anything else.
But to a degree, though, don't you still need an advisor, somebody to guide you on that process to ensure that you're doing it correctly? Because like everything else, one of the worst things that we tell any of our fellow brethren to do is do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get into a lot of trouble, is we think that, oh, I'll read a book, I'll watch a video, I can do it myself. And there's so much to for instance, talking to somebody in a coaching session and be like, have you talked to a therapist? Well, I don't know. I don't want them to tell me what to do. It's not that they're going to tell you what to do. It's they're going to ask the right question to get you thinking inside yourself, because you're putting up those barriers that aren't letting you get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Working with a professional in that space is absolutely necessary, whether it's a high level psychedelic integration coach that's like maybe gone through a program like Heroic Hearts, or a licensed professional that's, understands the space, but you should not do it alone. You're not supposed to do it alone. I think that's one of the biggest misnomers of all these issues, is we think we're supposed to do it alone. We're supposed to carry this all by ourselves, and I'm supposed to eat it, and this is the way it's supposed to be. It's not true, man. We're a community. We're a tribe. We were always meant to rely on each other. The tribe was intended to come together and move us through these portions of life and these hardships. And somewhere along the way, we thought we were just supposed to do it alone. And every bit of technology we use and everything else is so isolating, and it's not working. So even that, just half of that is the problem, right? This isolation process of technology in our modern societal system, and something about that community itself comes around you. Half the lessons I learned through some of these psychedelic experiences wasn't the visions, the trip, or this. It was seeing people show up for other people. People hold space in a compassionate way that I'd never seen modeled before. People genuinely caring, people doing this for free, right? We kind of look at what's going on right now in America, and we see the big pharma involvement in the psychedelic space, and it's hard not to taint the whole movement because of greed and money and all these things. But I'm telling you, this stuff, a lot of the shamanic traditions, they can't take your money for it. It was never intended. It grows from the earth. It's free, right? It's from the universe, right? And to see people just so willingly giving to humanity, doesn't matter what color your skin is, doesn't matter if you have an innie or an outie or something in between. It's like people showing up for each other. That was some of the most profound things that gave me more hope in humanity. All that stuff I lost in war and the military industrial stuff and everything that had like kind of almost robbed my joy, I was able to reestablish that by seeing that there's another way to do it. Like, you can just love on each other and show up for each other again. There's a different way.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head. I don't care if you spend one enlistment or an entire career doing these jobs. You are taught from day one. You breach a threshold or a doorway, you don't do it by yourself.
No.
You make sure somebody's there tapping you on the shoulder and you're good to go. But yet we'll deal with our mental health and our emotional health and never be concerned about somebody tapping us up on the shoulder. And that's one of the big things I think needs to change too, is we need to, and it is changing. I do believe that we're getting rid of that stigma that if you raise your hand and ask for help, that it's a sign of weakness, but we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, we're not meant to do it alone. You shouldn't have, we never have. It's like we just got some weird thing going in the last few generations where we thought that was the way. It's not the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Operator syndrome. Talk about what it actually is. And
yeah. Well, I love to. And, we're actually in like a very unique space right now where, a memo from Mr. Hegseth himself came out, mentioning operator syndrome by name. He failed to mention Dr. Chris Free, which I think, if I met Pete, might call him out on that. But, operator syndrome is a framework that was designed and observed and constructed by Dr. Chris Free, who was a PTSD researcher for the VA for quite some time. Chris Free's father was in the military, and he kind of grew up kind of seeing his father and maybe some of the side effects of war and how that impacted their relationship. And it kind of motivated him to try and figure that out. And he dedicated his life to serving service members. So he went and became a clinical psychologist and then went to the VA and said, hey, I want to help people like my dad. I want to figure this out. And as he was there, he started to see the process, see the system. It's not the VA as a whole or as an entity, but not individuals. We started to see these systems, and he was like, I don't know if I agree with this. I feel like we're missing some stuff. It's like they come in, they say what they say, and I can diagnose them with PTSD. We can give them medication and maybe psychotherapy, but we're still not seeing a decline in suicide rates. Their divorce rates aren't going down. Their dependence on substances aren't going down. And he's like, I think we're missing something here. And as you can imagine, in the VA structure, it's not built around pushing back. And ultimately, Chris said, in order to do what I need to do, I'm going to step away from the VA. So he ends up stepping away from the VA, starts working with a research center attached to a school, I think it was in Houston. And he starts actually being able to do and act on some of his suspicions. And some of those suspicions was like the prevalence of TBI. He's like, dude, if their brains are getting blown up at the rates they are, it's got to be having an impact on their mental health, their quality of life, and everything else. So let's start doing brain scans and see what that looks like, right? His counterpart was really big into gut health. He's a doctor, and they're like starting to map out that gut-mind connection. He's like, what's the role that our diet's playing in the inflammatory process, our brain fog, cognitive performance? So they start doing studies on that. Let's check out the role of the diet. Start doing some gut health stuff. Yep. He starts noticing, he's like, oh man, everybody that I interview, they stop breathing at night or they're snoring. So they have some type of sleep thing going on. Let's get them sleep studies and start seeing what the data says there. So he starts taking this physiological framework and like looking at it from that guise and he started developing this framework, right, with many different domains. He's like, hey man, if we're not addressing any of this, how do we expect to help these people? And as long as we're hitting PTSD and calling it that, it's like, we're never going to get ahead of this if we let all of these huge domains go. So that was kind of like the framework of operator syndrome. And, he ended up doing that work, and he still had a passion for the veterans. So through some of his connections, and I think it was actually through like a nonprofit group that invited him to a get together, he started meeting some special operators. And that's where he took his suspicions and the data that he was collecting at the research facility, and he started running these veterans and special operators through this protocol. Started getting more and more and more. They start getting referred to him. And that's when he wrote his first paper called Operator Syndrome. One thing I want to say is I get the most pushback on the term operator syndrome. Everyone's like, it's special forces PTSD. And it's just like, dude, it's not. And stop, guys, stop. It's not. If you actually read it, you'll see it's the exact opposite of what you assume it is. Right. And, the reason why it's called operator syndrome is because that's the first group he worked with. So it's the first group he worked with. He titled it that, but the framework applies to any human being with a nervous system. And especially if you're a human being that works in a high risk profession, so you work in a high stress job over a long duration of time, this stuff's going to manifest in your mind, body, and social interactions. So if you're a human being, you're going to see this stuff, right? So that's the first thing I want to dispel, because I don't know why people it's like zero nuance in this world, right? So that's the thing. Once he published that white paper, he said, dude, he's written hundreds of papers. Like, he loves this, dude. He's an academic at heart. He's a researcher at heart. But he said, when I published that, I got more feedback than I've ever gotten before. Like I think he published it on, he put it out on LinkedIn, and And he's like, dude, I got 400 messages in 24 hours. He's like, that's never happened. He's like, I've written many papers. That never happens, dude. He's like, so I was like, oh man. He said, but something unique that happened from that was fire chiefs reached out to him. Cops reached out to him and said, hey, you're talking about my people too. He said, that checklist, that white paper, that's my people too. And he said, okay. All right, well, let's focus over here. So he started working with some firefighters, started running them through the same protocols, running them down the checklist, checking things out. And what he found was mirror, right? It's like, oh man, exactly the same, right? So this is a nervous system condition, right? We can get to that many different ways, but high-risk professionals, absolutely, in the first responder community, mirror that of these special operators I found. And that just kind of started opening up the door, right?
I think one of the things that I've recently become aware of, and it's one of those things where when you hear it, you kind of go, oh yeah, but it's the micro TBIs that you're experiencing over an extended time in these careers. It's not big blast. There are, everybody thinks, oh, a TBI, a breacher or something, but no, I always think back to how many times you've been on the range and you forgot to put your ear probe back on and somebody fires off a round. You're like, damn it, those little things, but repetitively, year after year after year, those are all little micro TBIs.
Yeah. Well, I think that's such a great analogy you just used. Shoot your weapon without ear pro and you feel the pain in your ear because your ear's telling you, hey, buddy, that's not good for me.
Yeah.
Right. So the non-perceptive part is your brain. So if it hurts your ears, right, even if you put earplugs in, you're just bypassing it, but the shockwaves are still going through your head.
Correct.
Yep. So if it hurts your ears without ear pro, it's impacting your brain.
Yeah.
Right.
As we come to the end of this, any pieces that we've not hit on that you want to make sure we talk about?
No, I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity and I'm really passionate about this. So I appreciate the opportunity to come in and kind of talk about it. And I want to just say, I want a message of like hope. Right now there's a lot of cynicism out there, right? There's a lot of darkness and it can be really easy to stare into it. And that nihilism's there. And to want to walk down that path and think everything's lost is really easy these days. No matter where you look, there's going to be a lot of justification, but I promise you there's so much beauty too. And right now it's so divisive, whether it's left or right, up or down, pro-war, not pro-war, anti-cop, pro-cop. And I just want you to know like that's part of the system is to be divisive, right? And I want to encourage everybody to just not pay attention to that stuff, right? To look around you, right? Look at the people around you and see that as your reality. Build real relationships, right? If you're confused about a law enforcement officer, right? Go to their station and talk to them. They'll show you, right? You can go on a ride along if you want. If you're curious about what's happening in your community, go be a part of your community. Don't look at what's happening in these big cities or what they're pushing out to you. Go and see what's happening in your community. Get involved. That's one of the best ways to find new purpose, to really understand what's going on, is to get involved in your communities. If you want to make a difference in your kids' lives and everyone around you, it starts in your community. It doesn't matter what's happening in DC. It doesn't matter what's happening in the capital of your state. To some extent they do, but not to your everyday stuff and your perspective and what you want to believe. So I would just invite you to do that. Go to your local firehouse, right? Go check it out. They'll show you. They want to show you, man. They're awesome, right? And you might get a different perspective than what's being given to you. And then also I want to tell you too, to like just continue to do the work. I think when we each individually do the work, it makes the world a better place. We think that we have to fix all these problems over here, but you really don't. You can just do your part and start with you, right? Just start with you. Do
I think
your
that's
part.
The biggest thing we need to realize is that it always goes back to the oxygen mask in the airplane. You can't help anybody else until you help yourself first.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to take care of yourself first.
You do. It's the best investment. It feels selfish, especially for people like us that are fixers and want to fix everybody else. To like prioritize yourself for the first time feels selfish, but I promise you, if you do, it's going to change the lives of everyone around you. And then not only that, people are going to start coming to you, right? And you get to share that wisdom with them, and it's going to make the world a better place. So that's all I would want to say, just to keep your head up. Things aren't as bad as they look, right? This is a very beautiful world that we have. Get out there and see it, right? Don't stop watching the TV. Turn your phone off. It's poison. Well,
I appreciate you sharing your time and your story, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's great to get to meet you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't met in person yet. Yeah. So yeah, and thank you, man. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for this podcast. Thank you for joining my team and coming up and
it truly has been my pleasure. The thing that I would say to somebody, and you've already experienced this to a degree, you lost your tribe when you stepped away, and then you found an avenue to be back amongst a tribe, giving back. And I think that's the bigger part. You wanted a tribe, and I'm putting myself on you, but I believe I'm speaking to you. It's the tribe that you missed, but it's the tribe when you feel like you're helping others, as opposed to just a tribe of we're sitting around and we're pissing and moaning.
Yeah.
And so what I like now, being away from law enforcement now for 3 years, is especially like when I get to interact with the young clients, and they're just starting their careers and they've got all these ideas, and it's so cool to just kind of go, all right, what do you want to do with yourself? Kind of deal. And I get so much enjoyment from it. So it's been my pleasure being part of the team.
Yeah. Well, you're great. So thank you. Yeah. Thanks so much, man.
You're welcome. Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.